Alright guys, in this video I'm going to talk to you about how to blow the competition away. Now I know that sounds super cheesy, but if I would have titled this video, what is value and what is perceived value, I don't think many of you guys would have clicked on it. So just give me 10 minutes and hopefully I will give you some information which will help you analyze and come up with a better product that will allow you to succeed on Amazon. And so let's kick things off with this fan. This is a fan I actually purchased for my bedroom. Now, it's not a cheap fan, it cost £100, but let me explain to you why I went for this one. So when you think about a product on Amazon, think about your typical needs of the customer, not just there's not this kind of specific customers, but in general, what will most customers want from the product that you're looking at? So with fans, there's a few different things that people want. Obviously, the primary function of any fan is to cool you, or to move the air, which in the moving of the air across the skin will cool you down. That's the primary objective of any fan. However, you have manufacturers such as Dyson. If we go there, charging £250 for a fan because one, it's bladeless, and secondly, it looks good. So you are paying an awful lot of money for aesthetics. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I've tried some of these Dyson fans. They're quite noisy, then they don't cool overly well. So you're paying a lot of money for the brand and the looks. Now, in terms of perceived value and value of that product, to some people that is worth it. Some people want that look in their office or in their home or in their bedroom, so they're happy to spend that money. And this is what you have to think about with any product, is where the value comes from and which how much percentage of your customer base is interested in that value. Because there's always different ways that you can customize a product to add value, but you just don't want to add value for the sake of it unless a lot of your customers are going to benefit from it. So obviously Dyson have found a niche whereby people are happy to spend a lot on a fan that isn't necessarily great at cooling, but looks very, very good. On the other end of the scale, you have what you class as your standard desk fan. Now, at $16.99, people's expectations for this product will be very low, and they know it is literally just going to move some air, it's going to buzz, it's going to click, but it's going to be cheap and it's going to do the job. So you can understand that the value, £17, the value works. Now, why was I happy to spend more on this fan? Well, as it's for the bedroom, I wanted a quiet fan. Now, I've had cheap desk fans before, and I know when they're on, they make a lot of noise because they're spinning at such high velocity. And also when they rotate, they click and they go back and forth, and they just are really kind of quite cheap and nasty. So I was looking for something a bit better. So I looked at the Dysons and decided that they were well overpriced for what they actually offered. And then I found this one in the middle, which offers kind of a super quiet mode, so you can have it on at night. It's got a remote control, so I can control it from the bed, oscillates up and down, side to side. It's got a temperature gauge. It's got every function you could probably possibly want from a fan, and the cost was £99. And I mean, so it's not cheap for a fan, but for me, the value added up. The reviews, I've checked the reviews. The reviews did check out, and I would agree with the reviews there. So overall, from a value perspective, it was worth that. And this is what you need to consider when you're pricing your product and adding features to your product. Now, whether you're adding value to your product via design changes, material changes, adding functionality, or you're bundling, you have to think how the value is going to be perceived by the customer and whether they're going to be willing to spend an additional amount to buy your product. Because what you don't want to do, you never want to be at the case where you're competing with these guys. You don't want to compete at the bottom end of the market because there is so little profit at that price point. And there will always be someone, whether that's a supplier, because quite often suppliers also sell on Amazon, or Amazon themselves, someone will be able to undercut you. So you don't want to ever sell the most basic product at the cheapest price. You're always going to add value through one of the methods that I mentioned earlier. So let's just take a few examples and see if I can kind of analyze how people have added value. Hopefully that will give you a better idea of how to look at products and how you can improve products when you bring them to Amazon. So let's start off with a classic one, coat hangers. So if we look at coat hangers here, the best seller, as is you'll find in most cases, the best seller is usually the cheapest, because a lot of people are buying purely on price alone. Now, they're not the customer we want, so we would ignore that. But if you look the next one, this one's quite interesting. I know this is a sponsored listing, but it's obviously sold quite a few with that many reviews. They've made it a velvet hanger and they've made it pink. So they're going after a specific segment of the coat hanger market. They're going, without being sexist, they're probably targeting the female consumer base. However, you've also got the grey ones selling really well as well. So it's not to say just because pink's selling well, another colour won't. There could be other colours that sell well. But you can see by changing the colour, they've automatically distinguished themselves from other people, and it's allowed them to charge a lot more. Okay, this is only a 25 pack of $5.70, but if you scaled it up, it's about a tenner, and these guys are charging $18.99. They're ranked second. And you've also got people who change the material again, so they sell in wood. So if someone wants something a bit more solid, this might appeal more maybe to the older generation. Again, just stereotyping. You don't know. You have to try and think who these products might appeal to. So a wooden hanger, it's very solid. It feels value. It feels like it offers more value. If you compare a wooden hanger to a plastic one, it does. You can see why you'd probably be happy to pay a bit more. And so that's just one example. With hangers, different colour there, and different material choices could be the way that you add value to the product. Because from a functionality perspective, I mean, there's not a huge amount you can do with hangers. You've got these ones here, which are clip-ons, which are for things like trousers, and there's probably the ones you see in like the hotels where the actual hanger stays hanging, and you just unhook it and the hook stays in place. So that's another way you could do it. We've also got kitchen utensils. This it's very hard to stand out on this market. There's so much going on in all of these pictures, but let's just take these two for example. These are $26.99. These are $25.99. I mean, they look very similar products. These have got metal handles, these have got wooden handles, but the thing that adds more value, this comes with quite a nice looking pot. Now these are actually selling a fraction cheaper, but if this was me and I wasn't hung up on whether I wanted metal or wood, I'd probably go, do you know what, I'll take these because they come with the pot as well. So sometimes you can bundle something that adds real value, not just bundling for the sake of it, and you see that a lot. Make sure if you do bundle that you add value. We've also got key lock boxes. Now this is something I looked at in the early days when I was not really sure how to analyze products correctly because they were selling really well, and decided not to proceed with these. But trying to stand out with these was quite difficult because a lot of these are almost identical, and the only thing that seems to distinguish them is the size. My idea at the time is I wanted to do some light up dials that could be used at night as well, and it looks like someone's actually launched one there. But I saw some. So there's another person here who offered value by including some keyring fobs, which them things are so cheap to buy. I mean, they're probably a few pence. But if that was directly next to another product that's identical, and you're including some free keyring fobs, because most people using these boxes are using them for travel, or for the holiday homes or things like that, where they just want to put a key in a box and then it's got a tag on it. So it makes sense to include that tag with the box itself. So it's quite a good proposition when you're bundling correctly. And then you have another product, again this is something I looked at, which is picnic blankets. Now I brought in lots of samples of picnic blankets and they were all pretty much equally terrible. It's very difficult to improve them because as soon as you increase the thickness, the weight and the cost of the picnic blanket wasn't viable. So the only real way that you could customize these to stand out was the design, and then you needed to order like a minimum quantity of like 2,000 or 3,000. So that was another reason why I decided not to. But this shows with something like picnic blankets, design is so critical because the functionality, it's a blanket. So other than thickness and material choice, which are generally quite similar throughout, if you could come in with a nice design that's going to appeal to a wide percentage of the audience, then you could do well in this sector. So think about when you're adding value to your product, how are you doing it? Are you doing it through design choices? Are you doing it through material choices? Are you doing it by bundling? I mean, people see things in different ways. With things like Dyson, there's that brand thing, the brand issue that you'll never be able to compete with. It's very unlikely if you're starting FBA, your brand is going to be the thing that actually sells your products. Now, I'm not saying that's impossible, but it's very unlikely, especially with your first few products. So put that to one side, that you will never probably be able to use your brand to offer value until you take a brand like Anchor, which has been selling battery packs and stuff on Amazon for years. They've managed to establish a brand purely by selling on Amazon. But I think anyone at our position is unlikely to be in that stage for quite a few years. So brand isn't something that we can really consider as adding value. But design choice, material choice, adding functionality, and bundling additional items. Those four things are the key areas where you can add value. And always think about what features will appeal to most of your customers. So your feature, for example, the coat hangers, pink definitely will not appeal to everyone, but there's going to be a certain percentage, and with coat hangers there's such big demand that it will appeal. So if you come along and started selling pink lock boxes, there probably isn't a big enough audience to buy pink lock boxes, but for coat hangers there probably is, and I can imagine that's why they're probably doing quite well. Whereas with picnic blankets, pink again would probably do okay. I don't know if it would do as well as it would with coat hangers, but if you could come up with a modern design on those, you could do well. So think about all those elements, because the value and the perceived value to the customer, and that's also one thing to remember, that there is a difference between value and perceived value. So you could spend a lot of money making this picnic blanket the thickest, most luxurious blanket on the market, but then your customer might not agree that it has that perceived value, because in all of these listings, they're just going to say, oh, these are all the same. It's very difficult to get that across, and someone might not want to spend more than £20, and you might be there at £40 with a lovely thick blanket, but they don't actually want to spend that much. So as long as that perceived value, it matches up with the additional amount that you're spending. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to spend £5 and then charge £5 extra for your product. What you want to do is you want to spend £2 or £3 and then charge another £10 for your product. So keep those in mind. It's all about that balance between how much you're willing to invest versus how much additional price, or how much you can increase your price compared to the competition.